Good morning and welcome to Ag Talking Raw, where I talk raw about agriculture and other things that are on my mind. So, so what do we talk about today? Uh, Weird times in the world, really. I mean, just really weird. We don't have the certainty that we had before, if you know what I'm talking about. Um, I think we kind of all know what I'm talking about. We don't even know if the president that we have is going to be the president for the next 4 years because there are court cases. I know there's a lot of people that are going to freak out and say, oh, yeah, we got President elect Biden. We don't know if we're going to have the same president that we've had in the past 4 years for the next 4 years. I'll repeat that. We don't know if we're going to get this so called president elect as the president. We don't know if we're going to have a woman vice president. We don't even know if we're going to have a Speaker of the House that is going to take over for president. That's how messed up it is right now in today's politics. Today's politics has got us so confused that, most people are just willing to say that Joe Biden's going to be our president when we don't truly know. If you look at the mainstream media, you'll see that it's Joe Biden is going to be our president for the next 4 years. And Hunter Biden never took a dime from the Chinese or the Ukrainians or anything else. And his father was never involved in any of that stuff. But then you go down to the other news sources that are actually reporting the facts of the matter. And, some of it's on Fox, some of it is on Newsmax, some of it is on OAN. I like One America News. I like that over Newsmax. I like One America News. It seems to be the most non-biased, I would say, most accurately, or at least most researched news organization. Newsmax has a couple of radical rights, which I don't care to watch because they're like, oh, this is no, I just can't. Look, you're either looking at the radical left or the radical right. I kind of like the middle of the road, when it comes to the news. I want to see the pros and the cons. I don't see any pros with the Joe Biden presidency. I really don't. In my business, I don't. We lost money through Donald Trump as farmers, whether you want to admit it or not. The way the Obama years went with grain prices, we did really well. Even in the mushroom industry, I saw highs during the Trump years in the mushroom industry. With the grain industry, I don't go to the Farm Service Agency to collect my welfare check as a lot of people do. And there's a lot of guys that are on YouTube here that without that, that subsidy check, which isn't much, to me it's not much. The last couple of payments that came out under Donald Trump were pretty high, but I didn't qualify for those because I didn't report any of those acreages. There's a lot of guys out there that shake their head at me like, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? Well, because my thoughts and theories on this is that they use those numbers against us, and I'm pretty sure that they do. It doesn't matter if your name is to a set number of bushels of corn, soybeans, wheat, rye, barley, whatever it is that they're trading on at the Chicago Board of Trade, soy and milk. It doesn't matter if those numbers have your name next to them. They're all compiled into numbers. So if I grew the 32,000 bushels or 32,000 bushels of corn that I grew on that 148 acres or whatever it was. I was trying for 200, but I didn't. I had 148 acres. So that's, that number of 31,000 plus or minus bushels, 32,000 plus or minus bushels was put into the same number as, say, my neighbors to the north here and east that grow corn, that 32,000 bushel, 33,000 bushels of corn that I grew go into their 50, 80, 100,000 bushels that they put in. It's all compiled up, and then it goes into a report where they trade on these numbers. They trade, the Chicago Board of Trade trades these numbers, and people buy and sell corn, soybeans, wheat, rye, barley, whatever they've got to because of those numbers, and that sets the prices that we get. So I'd rather the U.S. government not know exactly how many bushels I produced. I'd rather not get a subsidy payment. I'd rather just the supply and demand be, hey, I need X. It would be so simple if there was X number of bushels on the market. The Chinese come and buy theirs, the Germans come and buy theirs, the Japanese come and buy theirs, the whoever buys whatever they buy, and the number dwindles down to zero eventually, and that's it. But if you watch the way they trade at the Chicago Board of Trade, they buy and they sell. They create a demand to raise the price, and then they sell off to drop that price to create a surplus, and then they buy back in again to create a demand. And that's how they make their money. And us poor dirt farmers, the guys that are actually putting this shit in the ground and spending the money on iron to get it out of the field and into the bin and onto a truck to go to a mill someplace, we're the ones that our price gets dictated by that. So when you go to the USDA or the Farm Service agencies and you report those numbers, they really do use those numbers against you in the long run, because they're buying and selling and trading, and they buy a shit ton of grain, that they'll hold on to for a couple of days, and then they'll dump it all back onto the market again, and these are people that don't even have grain bins, or even a way to move it. It's like, oh, well, you got 30 days to take delivery of this grain, so you can make or lose money. And there's a lot of computer buy and sells that happen now that they get fractional pennies, half a cent, 3/4 of a cent profit, and they'll dump it, and they do that over and over and over the course of the day. So if you buy 100,000 bushels of corn and it goes up 2 cents, and then they'll sell it back off, and then it'll drop back down again 2 cents. Well, you've made 4 cents because you just bought it again, and then it'll create that demand, and then it'll sell again. But I don't have to explain this crap to everybody out here, because it'll drive you insane. Same with milk and soybean meal and all these other things. Soybean meal is what's left after you take the oil out of it. For us, you non-farmer viewers here, soybean meal and distillery grains. Distillery grains is what's left after you take the ethanol or the alcohol out of corn, and that is sold for cattle and pork production. I don't think they put it for chickens, but I think it's cattle and pork for distillery grains. It is protein. All right, so that is sold as well, and that goes to Asia. It goes to Japan. It goes to China. It goes to Singapore. It goes to the Philippines. Corn goes all over the world. It does. But that's why I don't go to the Farm Service Agency. That's another reason why I don't go, and I'm not farmer welfare supported. I don't pay a crop insurance policy, because the crop insurance, if I can't do it on my own, I shouldn't be doing it in the first place. That's my theory. That's my choice. As an American, I don't think that I should be forced to do something like take a coronavirus vaccine. Should you be forced to take a coronavirus vaccine? I would like to travel again. I love to travel. I love the thrill of getting on an airplane, feeling that blood rush to the back of my body as they accelerate off that runway and climb into the sky. And then the long flight. You meet people on airplanes if you want to. If you want to be, in a shell and just sit in your chair and do nothing. But there's people to meet. The stewardesses are fun to talk to and stuff, because they've been all over the place. That's the thrill of travel, and then going to a new place when you get to where you're going. And they're going to force us. My thoughts are, I'm not 100% sure, but because of this pandemic, they're going to force us to take this coronavirus vaccine in order to be able to do that. I will not be doing that. I'm sorry, I'm not taking that vaccine because someone says you have to in order to travel the world. I'm sure after this is all said and done, somewhere, someone on the internet will be selling the certificates that you got the vaccine, and it's not like there's going to be a mark on your body like the smallpox vaccine left a pock, and you could show that. That's just not going to happen unless they want to tattoo us, which that will feel an awful lot like Nazi Germany and the Jewish population in the time of the 1930s and 40s, where they tattooed them. And I knew two people, Frida and Jaime Salzberg. They were egg farmers, or chicken farmers, poultry farmers, right up the road from us. I farmed their land after they sold their chickens. And they had very crude numbers tattooed into their forearms. Right here. This is where that's where they tattooed them. And they were young children at the time. They're both gone now, and I kind of miss them. You know, they were really interesting people, very interesting people, and I should have listened to them in my youth. But I can tell you, in 1994, the spring of '94, right after Timothy was born, Tim was born in April, and it was the spring of '94. The Jaime Salzberg says, "Hey, Mr. Pandy, do you have $10,000? I can make you 100. I know an investment." I was like, "Yeah, I got 10 grand, but I got a newborn, and I really need that money to get my seed in the ground." Oh, he says, don't put the seed in the ground. Farming is for fools now. And I thought, holy cow, man, how could he be saying this? He's a farmer. But he had it right. He had it right. He started making investments, and he died a very, very wealthy man. From a poor chicken farmer to an egg farmer, poultry, to probably a multi-millionaire and dressed in clothes that were worse than mine. I mean, his coat, I'm going to fall off my chair. His coat had holes in it and was all shredded up, and he drove an old, like, 78 square body GMC or Chevy truck that he would make his egg routes with, and everybody thought he was poor. I knew different because he talked to me, and I talked to him, and he was really neat. Cool. He was a neat guy. Twice in my life, I've had two old men tell me, "Hey, do you have $10,000? And I don't know why it was $10,000, but it was always a $10,000 question, you know. "Do you have $10,000? Because I can make you a lot of money." The one was a guy by the name of John Lloyd, and if you've been in the mushroom business or the mulch business as long as I have been, you'll know that name, John Lloyd. John Lloyd was a savvy old man, or wicked, as he would say. I was wicked. You know, I'm wicked. So I'm sitting in his, it was like a 1987 or 89 Ford pickup truck, two-wheel drive, red and white truck. And I got to know him. He was driving like a 1974 Volant, slant six Chrysler or some damn thing, Dodge Volant or Chrysler Volant, Plymouth Volant. It was a Plymouth. It was all rotted out. It was yellowish looking thing. And anyway, I got to know him because he was buying my material, and he paid me directly. And it would go to these mushroom barns that he was in control of, really, because he was that wealthy. He would go golfing after he would do his morning work. His wife had died. She had gotten dementia really bad and didn't know who she was. But in his house was the same furniture that him and his wife bought in 1940 whatever. After, I believe he was in the war. He might have been before the war. But anyway, I think it was got married in the war, and this furniture was the same furniture that they bought when they got married and moved into this little white house on the hill. That's just the way he was. He was so thrifty. But he says to me, he says, "Wesley," he says, "do you trust me?" I was like, "As far as I can, John. Yeah, I'd say I'd trust you." He says, "Do you have $10,000? And I may have said this story before. I says, "Well, yeah, I do, but I need a new tractor." He says, "How bad do you need the tractor?" I said, "Well, I need it pretty bad. I damn near got killed on the tractor that I have. It's two-wheel drive, and I'd like to have a four-wheel drive tractor or front-wheel assist tractor, because if I don't, I'm afraid that I'm going to get hurt doing this." And I had a throat problem, and it was from being in an open station tractor running a big square baler. So he says, "What if I told you I could get you enough money that you could buy a brand new tractor?" And I was like, "Wow, that's like $250,000, for what I want. And, for a new tractor." He says, "I could do it." He says, "Do you have $10,000? I says, "Well, yeah, but like I told you, I got to have this tractor, and I need to come up with $33,960. $32,960 is what I needed to get that tractor." and I needed the $10,000 down in order to get the loan for the other bit. He says, well, how much hay do you have left? And I said, well, not a hell of a lot, but I do have hay here. He says, well, I can't. He says, you got to give me the $10,000. I said, well, how's this sound? I'll borrow $10,000 from you. He says, it doesn't work that way, kid. And I was like, well, all right. I said, well, I'm going to have to pass because I don't know what you're going to do. And he says, well, I'll show you. And he pulls out his paperwork, his portfolio, and he had $2 million in his fund money account. That's what he called it. His fund money account. 2 million, 2 point some million dollars in his fund money account. I was like, I do remember 2.188 something. 2 million. 2,188,000 and change. I remember those numbers just burned into my brain because I'm sitting in a truck that's really not a great vehicle. It's full of shit. The man goes to Roots Auction, right? Roots Auction, and he buys junk and then sells it to farmers, truck drivers. Like, hey, I got something, I think I told the story of the hot sauce and Frezzo, Jimmy Frezzo, Jimmy Frezzo and the hot sauce. They hadn't been paying their bill to John, but John always paid me, and me and my wife. I was married at the time to Michelle, my first wife. And anyways, he wasn't getting paid, and he was a little pissed off. He said, I'm going to take this over, and I'm going to give it to Jimmy. That'll burn his ass, and I bought a bottle of it. It was $2 for this bottle of hot sauce that had no label on it because the mice had chewed the label off of it, and that's why it was at Roots Auction. So anyways, you got this guy who's got a portfolio of $2.188 million, and he's driving this old-ass Ford truck, and, because that was in like 2001, and it was the late 90s, and he had just bought it. And, he probably got a good deal on it, but he just got rid of the volant, and he didn't even get rid of the volant. It was at his house, and it was junk. I mean, it was just junk. Anyway, whatever. It didn't stay at his house very long. But anyway, holy cow. So sometimes you're sitting next to a millionaire and you don't even know it. But I did not give... Oh my God, that was weird. Vince Budessa. Of course I am. I have 4 winter jackets I need name embroidered. Can you? Okay, Vince. I guess I'll have to call you back. So, anyways, I didn't give him the $10,000. He was investing in commodities, oil, crude. So, the next day I come in with a load of hay. He's like, hey, kid, I'm not going to be able to give you the $105. He was giving me $105 a ton. It was better than I could get anywhere else at the time. $105. I'm not giving you the $105 a ton. There's some weeds in there, and I'm not paying for those, So I'm going to drop it down $5 a ton. And he's like, oh, by the way, he pulls out the New York Stock Exchange paper. He's like, see what oil did yesterday? I was like, wow, it's up like $2 a barrel. He says, you know what that did for me and what it would have done for you with that $10,000? I'm like, no, not really. He says, a lot. A lot. He says, bring me a load tomorrow. Don't bring me no weeds. Like, all right, fine. Get in a truck, go home. Dad was loading the loads. I said, Dad, you're going to have to leave the weeds off. We're going to send them up to the other place. He's like, other place? I said, yeah, I'll take it over to Georgie Mushroom Company. They'll, I'll give Debbie some cookies or something, and she'll just look past them. And that's what we did. So I go back the next day, and he's like, I see some fine grass in there. I said, oh, come on, John, there's no weeds. You said no weeds. He says, well, I can't have fine grass in that. I said, well, come on. He said, he knocked another $5 a ton off. And he goes, oh, by the way, because we're sitting in the truck when we do the deals, at the scale. When I'm done, I weigh out. I'd go sit in the truck with him, talk with him for 20 minutes, and then he would cut me the check, and I would have it, and I'd go home. So he was fucking with me. I mean, he was literally taking $150, the fuel that it would have cost me, more than the fuel that it would have cost me, because at that time I think diesel was maybe $1, $1.10 a gallon, maybe. I don't even think it was that high. I remember getting it at Yeah, I guess it was probably a buck. Maybe it was a little more. Maybe it was a buck 70 for at that time. Anyway, I could go back on my records and look, but anyways, not necessary. So he's fucking with me. He's taking $5 a ton. He's like, now if you'd had that $10,000, look where you would be now. Well, oil wasn't $60. It was 59 something when he asked me for the 10,000. We're now at $67 a drum. He said, I'm selling it this afternoon. I was like, really? I said, why? It's on its way up. He says, all bubbles burst, kid. You got to learn this. It's like, okay, all bubbles burst, right? He sold it that afternoon. I come home and I had a computer. It was a Windows computer. I had Windows 97 on it, I think. I might have had Windows 2000 at that time. Anyway, Windows 2000, and I'm looking online, and I got home, and it was like 2 in the afternoon, and oil just went nosedived. Wow. Okay. That old man, I wonder if he sold that oil. I wonder if he sold it. Go down the next day. I was taking 5 loads a week down to him. He wouldn't do it in the afternoon. I couldn't get 2 loads into him. So what I would do is I'd take a load in the morning to him and then get loaded up and then go out to Georgie Mushroom Company and sell it out there for the afternoon. And then Dad would load me up again and I'd go home and die because I was exhausted. So the next morning I get down there and John's there. I said, so what time did you sell your oil? And he says, well, I sold it in time. I was like, really? He says, yeah. I said, what'd you sell it for? None of your business, kid. You got $10,000? I was like, I told you I don't have $10,000, and you keep taking $150 from me every damn load. I said, I'll give you your $105. You got good material. It had weeds in it. I figured if he was gonna fuck with me, I might as well give him the damn weeds. So he says, your hay look good today. I'm like, what? I had weeds on here. I didn't tell him. Weeds on here. What are you talking about? He wanted to punish me, kind of, I think. And I really respected John. He was quite the guy. He said, do you have $10,000? I said, no, and I'm running out of hay. He says, I could have probably made you, he says, I could have made you enough to pay for that tractor. I was like, at $7 a barrel, I would have made $7.50, $8 a barrel. 7.5. I mean, I don't even, you know what? I was so disgusted. I don't even think I even did the math at the time. I might as well do it now. It's only 20 years late. It's only 20 years late. So if I had 10,000 and I divide that by, say, 59, that's 169 barrels. And we times that by 7.00, would have been $1,100. I had $11,000, right? 1,100. Yeah, I'd have got $1,100 in those 3 days. $1,100 in 3 days. So oil went down. It went down to like $54, and then everybody started buying again, including him. So he would put in a little today, a little tomorrow, a little the next day. He told me that he would have turned that $10,000 into $80,000 by the time I was done hauling that hay, and I didn't do it. The guy up the road here, Jaime Solzberg, he wanted that $10,000. He wanted the $10,000 to help me and my family. And you got to play by the rules by these old guys because they've done it before and they don't want to. If I say, hey, well, I'll borrow $10,000 from you and he loses. You think I'm gonna give him the remainder? No. And they were smart enough to know that. And, of course, I would have expected the profit from the $10,000 that I had borrowed. I'd have split it with them, for Christ's sakes, If he'd have made me $1,100 in 3 days, I'd have gave him $600, $550, $600. That would have been okay. If I'd have borrowed it, that would have been a good way to go. And I walked away in 3 days with, $550. But they don't work that way. Nobody works that way. Except for me sometimes. I feel like a fool sometimes. I'll lend somebody something and they'll do something great and then, forget about me in the end. And, but I'm a firm believer in karma. I'm a pretty generous person, I guess. And I really like to help people. And the sad thing is when you help somebody, they always forget you when you need help. And that has turned me into kind of a bitter person. And it's sad. I think I've lost a lot. I've lost a lot because I am so giving, and I expect more out of people than what they're willing to give back. And from friendships to, you don't see friends running around here. You look on other farming channels, they got all these friends and stuff that go running around. You know what's important to me is this. This is important. This guy who likes to eat his glove. This is the most important thing that I'll ever do, is have children and raise them up. And hopefully this guy is a very productive little boy. I don't care what he does in his life as long as he does it well and treats his family well. Oh, is that good? Is that thumb good? And there's Lola. Yeah, Lola's down there. So you're going to go down there and torment her? Or is breakfast ready? Because I could really like that breakfast I had yesterday. So, anyway. So those are my stories. As far as the stock market, it's on its way down. That bubble's about to burst. And, there you go. Bob's your uncle, right? There you go. Anyways, enjoy. Thank you. See you again sometime. Maybe